To expand the NCAA tournament or to not? To quote one of my favorite movies, how about no? You're on Big East Energy Weekly. Welcome into Big East Energy Weekly. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, with Jay Holahan of Johnny's Report. Going through this absolute ridiculous notion of expanding the NCAA tournament. The Big East Energy Network is sponsored today by Asabasa Spice Company. Go get your spices for all of your now July 4th, maybe Father's Day coming up, cookouts, the whole deal. Jay, we'll have to send you some of that stuff so you can test it out on your own. Everybody we send it to absolutely loves it. Burgers, chicken, steak, the whole deal. Even if you're like a guy who smokes meats and stuff like that, that's where Asabasa Spice comes in. But enough of that. This notion, I think the Big 12 president, Charlie Baker, said something that they're having these conversations, and I think he's the NCAA president as well, talking about the expansion of the NCAA tournament. Jay, I already know the answer to this question, but are you in favor of an expansion of the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I'm not. I think maybe there was a time where they could have played around with it, but where we are right now in the present state of college basketball, I mean, could you imagine 76 teams this past year? It would have been a total snooze fest. So, and I just think that with the amount of parity that there hasn't been in college basketball in the last couple of seasons, I don't think it would make sense to jump to 76. Now, the Big 12 president disagrees with me, and I believe Bill Self is actually in favor of this, which is interesting. But yeah, I really do not subscribe to that notion.
Well, I also
76.
Whether it's Bill Self, I mean, I would bet, and maybe we'll do this, but I bet if we did a straw poll anonymous of all Big East coaches, they'd be in favor of it too, because it helps them. Like, it helps. The only people that it helps are the people that are in the business of making money for college basketball, like in college basketball. Who it hurts is the fans, because and low majors, because what I'm going to say is, since 1985, the last time they moved from, I think it was 32 to 64, and then I think they went 64 to 68. But like the last time there was like actual movement, there's only 70% of teams added have 0 wins. 70%. So when people talk about the growth of college basketball, 98% of expansion is adding to the bottom. It's not pro sports. Like, if you do it, if this was, and it's closely getting to pro sports, but if this was like a 32 team league and you're like, you know what, you and I are owners, and we're like, we should probably get 2 more expansion teams. We should go to Charlotte. We should go to Seattle, right? Those teams eventually get better. But Oakland, Hampton, Stephen F. Austin, those teams don't get better. They just continue to be shit in terms of the grand scheme of college basketball. So, like, it doesn't make sense to me, because all it would do is add 2 more SEC teams. Maybe you get an extra Big East team. Maybe you get 3 Big Ten teams that are all mediocre. I just don't understand why. Like, it's not doing anything for the game. Could you see like an actual advantage? I did see Rocco Miller, who's a friend of the program. He's a bracketologist, talk about if they did this, it would only make sense if they said, okay, you get 2 automatic bids for like these mid-majors instead of 1. And then you add something to it, because some of these mid-majors, like the second team in like the SoCon, the second team in the Horizon League, would 1,000% be the 10th team in the Big Ten or the 11th team in the SEC. And it would make more of that kind of high major versus mid-major drama. Could you see something like that?
Absolutely. I think if you look back this year at the Big West Conference, that was such a strong conference between UC Irvine and UC San Diego. One of those 2 teams very well could have been an at-large bid.
Absolutely.
And especially when you look at the grand scheme of things as to how that turned out. I think another team as well, now they obviously tailed off at the end, but even at University of San Francisco throughout the majority of the season, they were a pretty decent team as well. So I just think that if they had to, because there is no, I mean, for bracketologists, for people, there is no exact title put on mid-majors. If the NCAA went that route and said, hey, we're going to give you a title, we're going to have the Power Six, mid majors, low majors. Mid majors are going to be able to get a bid and an at-large bid thrown in there. Then what do you do about the bottom teams? That's conversation maybe that they'll have to have separately. But that's the only route I can see it being really plausible for everyone. Either that, or you're just going to get, as you were saying, USC sneaking into the to the tournament out of the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, I think what's interesting too is, and you mentioned two teams. I gotta give shout outs. My buddy, I think Tom was on. My friend Tom Tankovich was a coach on the UC San Diego team that made the tournament. The Tritons now been promoted over to New Mexico. So good luck to Tom Tankovich, and then also San Francisco. My guy Kyle Bankhead is an assistant coach there. So I'm very familiar with a lot of these. As everyone knows, I'm a hoops junkie. I'll be up watching those late games with friends of mine that are coaching or just good basketball. But you're right. Like it's tough to kind of allocate spots to teams that you don't feel deserve it because they have so many opportunities to prove that they're worthy of an invite to the NCAA tournament. And when you don't win games, like eventually it should matter that you're winning. It shouldn't matter that you just were blessed to be either in a conference realignment situation or you just happen to be, regionally in the SEC like Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? So it's just that to me is my biggest issue with this. And there are other things that they can do to help college basketball. Messing with the best thing about it is not it.
Exactly. And when you look at it pertaining to the Big East, I mean, the only time it would have, well, I shouldn't say the only time, but the one example that you can think of that expanding would have helped would have been 2 years ago in 2023 when, Seton Hall, St. John's, Providence had reasonable expectations of getting in. Now, is that we need to expand or is that just don't put in 5-6 teams out of the Mountain West that don't deserve it, or University of Virginia that was a total snooze fest in the first 4 game that year?
No, I agree. And I think it's like it's not revisionist history, but like I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with just because it helps my program, whether it was like UConn on the bubble or St. John's, your show, or one of our colleagues at the network that would help them get more shows because their teams in the NCAA tournament. To me, I would rather see the best and the absolute most deserving teams. And are they going to get some of that wrong? Sure. But for the most part, they do a decent job. Last year I had major issues with the tournament committee, and then coming to find out that they actually, all these people are they're conference affiliates. So like there's no reason for, like, Bubba Cunningham was the ACC commissioner or ACC. He's
UNC?
is he like the director of operations or I forget what
something along the lines. Yeah.
Some large title. I'm people are going to kill me for that, but like Bubba Cunningham is associated with North Carolina, and he was also on the NCAA tournament committee, and so they get the last bid. It's like, come on, like let's just be honest about what we're doing here, and that's the stuff that I think is going to continue if you expand.
The one that I had an issue with was actually Baylor getting in. I didn't think Baylor was a tournament team at all, and which was a surprise considering how much they spent for kids out of the portal. But that was one that I just really was thrown.
Texas to me was more of a head scratcher. Like they Texas, made I think it was something like it's an unprecedented that Texas and North Carolina, but more so Texas, because just because they played in the SEC doesn't mean that they're good. Yeah. It just means that they've had more opportunities to play better teams.
I was okay with UNC. I thought that, I mean, the way they went down to the wire with Duke made sense. Obviously, being a first 4 team, that was fine. But I could definitely see people saying, hey, there were more deserving teams to be put in over UNC, though.
There definitely was.
Yeah.
and they're probably a lot smaller and bring less eyeballs to the TV. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about, instead of expanding, what are some things that Jay and I would, if we were in charge for the day, what would we do to help promote college basketball? We're going to talk about that after the break. Looking to get a leg up before your July 4th barbecue? Go to asabasaspice.com/BEE and use the promo code BIGFLAVOR15 for 15% off on checkout. Trust me, guys, you do not want to mess out on what is easily the best marinade dry rub that I've ever had, whether it's come to the high stakes rub, the Peruvian chicken, or the island jerk. I use it almost on a regular basis now. I would say every other day there is something from Asabasa Spice going into the protein that I put in my body, whether it's chicken, whether it's a steak, whether it's a pork, anything that we do in this house. If we have Asabasa Spice, that's going on it. Go check it out at asabasaspice.com/BEE and use the promo code BIGFLAVOR15 for 15% off at checkout. All right, we're back on Big East Energy Weekly with Jay Holahan and Mark Zanetto here on the Big East Energy Network, sponsored by Asabasa Spice Company. All right, Jay, if you were the commissioner of or the president of the NCAA for the day, what's your biggest change that you make? You're the basketball czar. How do you make us better?
Well, it was something that we were talking about, obviously off air. It's a very big subject nowadays, of course, and that is the ongoing transfer portal NIL issue that we continue to see. It's something that the NCAA just kind of threw out there and then just washed its hands with it because why not? And I think for the majority of people coming into this whole NIL idea, it seemed like, okay, players weren't going to get in trouble anymore, or players could make at least a little bit of money if they went and signed autographs, if they did some sponsorships. Like I remember at St. John's, when it first came out, Julian Champagny was doing a Mercedes-Benz thing. That was fine. Yeah. But when it came to, okay, now we're just going to have what was, I guess, always said, it was always behind the door. We didn't know if necessarily there was a package going underneath the table to players at a local diner with money in it. And, I always think back to what I think I don't want to get this wrong, but I think the Field of 68 put this out, the podcast. It may have been John Fana that said, because Jim Boeheim was criticizing. He said, all right, Boeheim, like we're going to pretend Carmelo Anthony wasn't given a little extra dough. But that is something in and of itself that, okay, we thought that would be essentially done away with. Now it's basically still done, only it's legal. And there's no cap to it. There's no precedent to it. It's just, okay, here you go. And as I just spoke about earlier about the Baylor Bears last season, that's something that, they had, I think, one of the highest payrolls in college basketball, in my opinion. Look at all the talent they had. Look at what they were able to, snag Jeremy Roach from Duke. And, I think North Chad Omier as well from Rutgers. And that was supposed to be a heavy penny as well. So that's kind of, more of the where we're at. And especially with the fact that these players can be paid whatever they want. There needs to be a cap set for the NIL and for the transfer portal as well. There needs to be some type of relegation. Like, hey, you can't transfer more than once. Once you've made a commitment, because what are we saying to 18-year-old kids? You can just jump in and out of life. That's just not the way it works. So I think that's something that needs to be said. That's something that the college basketball and NCAA need to get together, because let's face it, teams like St. Joseph's, I'm just thinking of local teams around my area, St. Joseph's, Drexel, University of Delaware, they're going to be killed because of all this. They can't keep up. How are you supposed to keep up? It's like in the movie Moneyball, Billy Beane, there's the Yankees, there's the rich teams, there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. That's mid-majors and low majors right now. Like, it's just very tough. If you don't have a wealthy alum that's going to be able to back you, you're kind of screwed, and that's unfortunate.
You guys definitely have a wealthy alum over with
We do
St.
have a
John's,
wealthy
don't?
alum.
Yep,
We
Mike
do.
Rapoli, some vitamin water love.
We do.
No, listen, I get it, because in all jokes aside about St. John's and now it being legal to have a bag man and all of that, because it's the truth. But I also think it's a harder sell to now that the genie's out of the bottle. It's a harder sell to be like, all right, we can't do anything about this. We can do something about it, but it has to be reined in, because if it's not, then you're right. It's going to become more of a haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And even a storied program like the team that I cover in UConn is going to eventually have a harder time coming up with those NIL dollars, because let's face it, we were joking around, like I don't think there's any wealthy benefactors that, if they are, they're doing it the Duke way, because Duke has 3 corporate wealth managers that essentially kind of do their own thing, and they just have this fund that people can essentially add to, and they reach out to wealthy donors. And I'm sure UConn's doing something similar to that, but there's not that kind of figurehead that like, hey, I'm a billionaire and I'm just going to do whatever. But that's kind of getting off the point. I think the issue is, if I wrote a piece on this and I can't find it, but it's in a Substack, Hoops Capital of the World Substack, where essentially you cap it at $12 million for basketball. And because if you think about it, if there's 15 players on a team, every player the average is like almost $1 million. That's a number one, that's ridiculous. B, but you have to remember that it's not going to go away, and you're not going to be able to say to a team, okay, you only have like $5 million to play with. Because then what's going to happen is the old way is going to happen. You're a really good player. I'm a wealthy alumni. I'm only allowed to give you $500,000 for the year. So instead, I funnel things through the back door, or I drop cash on your porch, because it's just, people won't care. But if you rein it in and you start to kind of have strict actual guidelines, and you're like, hey, listen, if we catch you cheating and you do this kind of behind what's eventually the governing body, and it may not be the NCAA eventually, whatever the governing body is, then you say your program's dead. Like if you mess with this system, like zero tolerance, like you're done. Like, because we're literally saying you can get $12 million for your basketball program to pay the players off of whether it's rev share, whether it's NIL collectives, market value, because what the only issue is, and I've had he's more of an entrepreneur, he's not a lawyer, but he was talking about how this will end up getting squashed in court eventually, because I can't tell Jay Holahan to, like, I can't cap how much you make.
Yeah.
Like, I can't take money out of your pocket. So once you open up this NIL world, what it's going to end up being is you're going to have to find a source that comes in, whether it's devoid of the NCAA or the NCAA, that says, okay, we're going to take over this, and it's going to we're going to have to revamp everything. So that to me is the toughest nut to crack, but it probably has to happen, because you're right. The Drexels, the St. Joe's, like those kind of like somewhat mid-majors that maybe have a storied history but just don't have the money to do this anymore, are just going to go away. And that's unfortunate for college basketball.
Yeah. And again, I'm not against giving kids money. Obviously, that is something, as I mentioned earlier, a way to make a name off yourself. Because let's face it, the reason why all this came to head is because of the college football and basketball video games, back in the day.
Right.
And I think that...
Thanks, Ed O'Bannon. Ed O'Bannon.
And had that, not happened, then kids wouldn't be able to get, some type of money. But making $9 million, more so than G League basketball players, mind you, or just the last guy on an NBA bench, is ridiculous. Now, what it has done, and it has benefited, is kids are staying. Like, that's the one thing that really has been helping, because, throughout the years, everyone was always saying, well, we need to keep kids in for the game, for the product. I even think Jim Calhoun said that at one point.
Yeah, no, and we had Jim on the other day talking about his book, and that was great. And he joked around. He's like, talking about how he gave money to one of his players, like $20. He's like, the NCAA is going to come arrest me. And I'm sure there was more. Like I've joked around with everybody because I know coaches, I mentioned 2 today, and I'm not trying to implicate anybody, but like outside of those 2 gentlemen that I mentioned, like every coach, assistant or head coach in college basketball from 50 years ago to now, everybody got paid. There's just there is absolutely nobody that I can tell you that I believe is 100% clean, because there was no such thing as a clean program. What ended up happening in the media is they deified, the Knights and the Coach K's, who, their players graduate because those players were taken care of. Like, and I'm not saying that they were given like lavish gifts, like just comfortable. Like you said, like, like a little bit of, here and there, making sure that they're not getting, doing anything stupid. They're staying out of trouble, probably covering up a lot of their stupidity that they did on campus. Like that's what college athletics used to be. So one can argue that that's a kind of a creepy, like behind the scenes way to do things, or you could be out in the open and be everything. And then you got, the Shedeur Sanders going like this, because he's making like $5 million, that, which do you prefer? There probably should be a middle ground there. But if we don't ever get to that, what I would propose is you turn college athletics into, people close their ears, the European professional model. All over Europe, basketball, soccer, like there are towns that have these professional teams, and players go there and they make money, and they're superstars in their region, and they don't go to school. Like they can still go, you can still go get your education. But any European player that comes to the States that plays basketball goes, I didn't know that this was like a thing. Like like if you're in Spain, you don't go to university to play basketball. You go play basketball. Like it could be a separation where it's like UConn has a program, but they also have their scholastic program. Same thing with St. John's, like or Creighton or whoever. Maybe that's the model we go to. So we separate it. So the kids that are actually there to kind of be eventually like real professional athletes move on to a higher level. And they have the opportunity to still get their degree if they want it. If they don't, they don't. But stop messing around with it. I think the bottom line is, no matter what they do, there's got to be some accountability, whether that's signed contracts, whether that's buyouts, whether that's a cap. It could be all 3 of those things, but there needs to be some kind of leadership that needs to step forward. And unfortunately, the NCAA just did this, like you said, and said, okay, we're tired of all these transfer waivers. We're tired of all these people kind of saying that I need this, this, and this. So you can transfer wherever you want. And that's fine. But it's created chaos.
Exactly.
I don't hate it, because when we do a transfer portal show, everyone's like, this guy should go here and this guy should go there. And you'll get a piece of that next year when your YouTube show is going crazy, because St. John's is in the portal again, and you're getting 30,000 views every show, because they want to know if you're getting the best point guard in the portal. All right, last thing for me, because we kind of went on a tangent, but that's okay. Scheduling. Stop with the neutral site. I'm just going to call it what it is. Stop with the neutral site bullshit. Like, I am super excited that Alex Caravan gets to go to TD Bank Garden and be close to home and play BYU. Good for him. He does, that's part of this homecoming for him and blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't it be better if AJ DeBonsa played in stores? Wouldn't it be better if Kentucky came to Madison Square Garden to play St. John's in the Garden, and it's not a neutral site game? Like, or vice versa, or St. John's goes to Lexington to play Kentucky. Whomever. I'm tired of Kansas and Duke in the United Center. It's stupid. Like, just unless it's a preseason tournament and you want to do these MTEs, that's fine. But home and homes are staple of college basketball. Like some of the best memories I have are, Florida coming to stores. Not we're going to Madison Square Garden to play Florida, which we're doing this year. Cool. It's just it boggles my mind that the people that run the sport can't get it right, that you can have like one out of conference game that's neutral site, but as soon as we start talking about these neutral sites taking over for these home and homes, it's just not where the sport should be.
Yeah, I mean, I Personally, I agree. I love the home and homes. I think it definitely brings a lot of pizzazz to college basketball. I mean, that's why I really like the Gavitt games. I mean, that was a lot of fun when Nebraska would be coming to St. John's, or we would be going out to Bloomington to play Indiana. Now, and that's not necessarily like we're not playing them the following year, but just an example of us being able to go out, play someone on their home court. There's a draw there where, as a college basketball fan base, you're able to have some type of dismay because, oh, these guys are, total a-holes, if you will. They're completely, bashing our players.
Right.
And that creates a rivalry. That creates something going. I remember, there was an issue with Steph Smith and the Indiana fan base, the student body, and they were not going back and forth, but they were chanting things at him, and it
Sure.
just made it fun. But even if you go back, I mean, look at Christian Laettner. I mean, everywhere he went to, they hated him, which no pun intended. But they really did not like Christian Laettner, and anywhere he went at a home and home, they were going to be going after him. And I think that was something that was great for the sport. That was something that was great for college basketball. Although the in-season tournaments, I do like those. The
Okay.
NIT tournaments, I think those are exciting. I think that's fun. Now, if like we're going to be playing Kentucky in Atlanta,
Yep.
like why are we not scheduling that game at St. John or
Or
at
Kentucky.
Madison Square Garden? Yeah, or Kentucky, going out to Lexington. Why would that not be the case? We're going to be taking on Alabama at the Garden. That should be exciting. November 8th. That will be a great test. And that's another thing. It's a great test for your team to see how they do
Yes.
on the road, how they do at home at the Garden. Because a lot of times, I'm sure as when kids go in there for the first time at MSG, it's like
Yeah.
their eyes, just pop out of their head. They go crazy in a sense.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Like in the point you made about the idea about road games. A road game is designed to test your team. And if you win a road game, it is truly the best test of whether or not you are a good or great team. You cannot tell me that playing I'm going to find this clip so I'll share it with you guys and I'll put it on social media. When I was doing freelance journalism for the Southern Conference, I was doing a piece on scheduling between mid majors and high majors, and this is pre Coach K retiring. So Wake Forest, Duke at Wake Forest at the Joel, Duke, the Zion team that was very good that ended up losing in the Sweet 16, but they were killing everybody in the ACC for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And especially in the preseason, they really didn't get tested. They played zero road games. They played a couple neutral site games like everyone does. Zero true road games. And so my question, very innocent, 10 years ago, asking Coach K. So it was tied at halftime with a very average Wake Forest team. Danny Manning was the coach. Did you see a difference with your team adjusting to the road environment, this being the ACC, the first true road game you've had in the ACC, really all year? And he editorialized it and just like kind of got pissed off and like blah, blah, blah. The best part about the entire interaction is, as a notorious Duke hater, is afterwards I said, well, I wasn't implying that you guys are the bad guys, even though I was. And and the best is there's a guy in the back who like tried to flip the script. He was like, hey coach, you see the football game? And then the video cuts off. Like, so like, I guess like there was a Monday Night Football game on the night before. So, but my point is like, that's just something that's been happening for years. It's not new. Like high major teams schedule to the benefit of them and they don't give a shit about anybody else. And unfortunately, it ruins it for the true college basketball fan. Like, why wouldn't, if you're a Kentucky season ticket holder and they're going to go play neutral site in Atlanta, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that?
That's funny.
Like, who?
Yeah. I know a few actual Kentucky season ticket holders, and
I'm sorry. I'm
well, I'm not a Kentucky. Yeah, trust me. They are absolutely every bit of. It's one of the craziest fan bases I have ever experienced.
Easily.
That's state of Kentucky. But yeah, could you imagine the Blue-Red game though being played at the Cintas Center in Cincinnati instead of being played, in Lexington, in Louisville, where they built, these built up these huge, magnificent arenas.
Say what you want. Say what you want about a former Big East team and former American team in Cincinnati. Yeah. But since Cincinnati Xavier, that crosstown shootout, they do it right every year. Yep. Every year they play each other. It's non-conference. So, but it's a rivalry. In one year it's in Cincinnati, and next it's in Norwood. So like some areas of the country and some coaches and administrations get it right, and some don't. No disrespect, but Bill Self is one of them that doesn't get it right. You can't honestly tell me that if you play someone outside of Fog Allen, it's not different than if you play them in the Allen Fieldhouse. Like, that's an advantage. So give and then take. That's it. It's just it's 1 year you take it, and 1 year you give it. That's the bottom line. And if you win both the home and homes, you were the far superior team for that time. Like, why is this so difficult? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I just, going back to that point, I really do like the idea that, hey, you can go into a big stadium too. Like, I do like the idea that
I don't think you should get rid of them. I think and I'm not trying to give Duke credit here because I can't stand them, but I liked the fact that Duke was playing Illinois randomly in the middle of their randomly in the middle of their conference. Yeah. Do that. That's an event. It's like the college football season. At the beginning of the season, they play those like marquee games in some random football stadium, not at home and home. Those are fine. Like at the beginning of the year, do that, but don't shy away from playing those same teams like middle of the year to mix it up. Instead of a bye game, go on the road to play a really tough team at the end of December, or like at the beginning of January, or in the middle of January, February, when there's a break in between the Big East tournament. Like that to me is the most effective way to do this.
And that's why I like the Hall of Fame shootout that they have, where I guess it's traveling around, but it was cool to see Duke and Kentucky play at MSG. I mean, because of now there's another whole rabbit hole we can go down, which is they're able to expand their recruiting and all that, and able to move their dominance without the
all of that is North Carolina. Is bull now, because it's the smallest the world has ever been. True. If you're a college basketball fan, you can get any game, anytime, anywhere. You know who Duke is. You don't pretend that if you go out and play in Seattle, Washington, and when people are like, "Oh my God, Duke's here," I've never heard of them. Like, what are we talking about? It's the most ridiculous thing in the world now. Back pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-15,000 social media platforms. I mean, come on, guys. Like, that's the most ridiculous bullshit argument, and it's old school mentality. Like, if Duke goes and plays in Vegas, they're not breaking new ground. They get kids from all over the world. They just got a kid from France to come, and Dame Sarr. Like, so, and the same thing with UConn. Like, UConn, that was Jim Calhoun's deal. Like, I had him on. He was like, we had to go to Israel. We had to go to Seattle, Washington, South Carolina. We couldn't recruit against the big guys like St. John's and Seton Hall at that time. So they expanded their profile. But
St. John's and Seton Hall were the big guys at one point. Wow.
They were. I mean, think about when he came into the program, 86, 87. Yeah. And St. John's is coming off of a Final Four, and you still got Luke Hunter-Second, Georgetown, Big John, like all the Big East. The Big East was not UConn's for the taking back then. It was for Jim Calhoun's line. They were just trying to win the 8-9 game and figure out what the rest would be. All right. Speaking of non-conference schedules trickling out, we're going to take a very short break, and we're going to go through that really quick and close out the show. We'll be back. All right, we're back on Big East Energy Weekly with your host here, Mark Zanetto and Jay Holahan of the new Johnny's Report Hey, real quick, tell people not where they can find it. They know where they can find it. Big East Energy Network on YouTube and anywhere you find your podcasts on Apple and Spotify. But hey, man, I appreciate you coming on board and being a part of this whole journey.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Going from just sitting here doing this with the mic in my room without a camera on, and not being affiliated with anyone. It was fun because I was doing a podcast before, but always wanted it to grow into something, and now finally get that opportunity. So thank you and Casey for doing so. But yeah, graduating from St. John's 2 years ago, I must admit I am a little jealous as to what the kids get to experience nowadays up there. But yeah, I'm very excited because as we were talking about with non-conference schedules, I have plenty of stories during the Mike Anderson era that St. John's fans will for sure agree with on this episode with me saying that. But yeah, very excited to be here and excited for the opportunity, and especially get to talk Johnny's basketball, something I'm very passionate about. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you. So the non-conference schedule, the one that popped out for me is, and this is, people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're gonna talk about UConn?" Nope. My favorite non-conference game that popped out, and it's because I'm a lot older than you, is North Carolina Georgetown. And I know people look at that and go, "Well, Georgetown sucks," or they have lately. But the thing that I love, the thing that I want for the Big East, and this is not just, and I'm not saying this because we started this network. The Big East, when it's strong, has a St. John's, has a Georgetown. No disrespect to my brother Casey and Jimmy and all those guys at Roll Jays. If Creighton never won another game, that I love them, but that it moves the needle on the national level. But as far as like hardcore Big East fans, like, you got to have a healthy St. John's. You got to have a healthy Georgetown. Even if UConn's not as good anymore, like if you had the core, because UConn was an addition, to this Big East at the beginning, and they weren't a power. Jim Calhoun created a power there, but you got to give me Georgetown. Georgetown has to get better, and I was afraid of Georgetown when I was a kid. Afraid.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, if UConn played Georgetown, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, let's make sure we don't get blown out. Let's keep it close. You know what I mean? Like, it's same with St. John's. Like, I literally, there was times where I was just like, it is what it is. Hell, Seton Hall, man. Like, I was sending Brian, who's our Pirate Vibes host, a tweet that's like, this is a picture of Seton Hall Duke regional semifinals, right? Like the lineups. Like, this is where I want the Big East to go back to. So that non-conference schedule, when I saw Georgetown, North Carolina, I love that because I want them to raise their profile. A Georgetown win over North Carolina, even in North Carolina's a little down, is huge.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Now, I really think that Georgetown, if they continue this upward trend, well, very minimal upward trend, but I like what Ed Cooley has done in terms of last season, in terms of how I felt like they were at least showing signs of life. So I'd like to be able to say at least one day, hey, Georgetown's back to the at least middle / upper echelons of the Big East. Maybe they're not 1, but maybe they're 6, maybe they're 5. Like, can they at least get there?
Right. No, I agree, man. Like, I think what's the best game that you have on your schedule? It doesn't have to be St. John's, just in terms of the entire.
Well, it is St. John's. I'll be honest.
That's fine. They have a lot of marquee games.
It has to be St. John's, Kentucky. I personally would. We were talking about Kentucky earlier. I cannot stand Kentucky fans. Not a Kentucky person. It's the fact that they had, Coach Calipari there before, and I could not stand Cal. So that's
you don't
where
like Coach Cal?
I am not a Coach Cal guy. Now that might be the minority, but
No, I don't think it is, but keep going.
That's where I am on that one. But I like the idea that you get Rick Pitino, you get Kentucky again. I think that's very intriguing. I like the idea that, again, we're going to be tested. Now, it is in a neutral environment. We just spoke to plethora about that, so I'm not going to go there again. But yeah, I really think that that's going to be an exciting game, and I'm excited for to see what we're able to bring to the bad boys of the SEC. Because let's be real, the Big East is looked down upon by the SEC.
Recently, it shouldn't.
True. No, it shouldn't, but they are. And especially when this past year comes up and they're talking about how, quantity they have and all that. Well, throughout the last couple years, UConn's been at the table. Creighton's been at the Marquette. Villanova. Yep. So let's be real, who has more national championships, the Big East or the SEC?
Let's be honest. Like, kudos to Florida. I was at the UConn Florida game where they almost beat them, but then I kind of knew that Florida was the odds-on favorite going forward. I had them in a lot. I only did 2 brackets. One had UConn winning it all, and one had Florida winning it all. So I felt like I was pretty spot on there. Probably I won't go over my other picks because they were all trash. But I do think that the SEC has obviously gotten better in basketball and it's become a priority, but only because they have a little more margin for error. Like, so if you're a coach in the SEC and you have a lot more money to play with than, say, like Xavier, then you have the option. It's kind of like I hate to say it because I'm a Yankee fan, but it's kind of like being a Yankee fan. Like, if the Yankees screw up on free agency, they typically can go trade for a better arm or a better bat. If you screw up, you have talent underneath it. So you have to be almost perfect in your recruiting at Seton Hall, in your transfer portal acquisitions. Like, even just look at UConn. They made one talent mistake with Aiden Mahaney last year, and it turned into a complete frustration for the entire year. Like, that was a miss on roster construction. They thought they could challenge him to be a better player at times, and that didn't come to fruition. And they didn't have the backup and injuries, blah, 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 whatever. But, like, that's the thing. In the SEC, if you have maybe an injury or you miss on a portal, you likely have another 5-star kind of behind that, similar to the way their football program is run. Yeah. But I will say this about Kentucky and the SEC, in particular Kentucky. The hubris that Kentucky fans show is one of the silliest and delusional fan bases I've ever been around in my life. Because let's be honest. Have you ever done this? Have you ever gone back and looked at the 8 national championships?
No. Not in depth.
How I'll ask you that question then. Of the national championships, how many have been won of the 8 have been won in the field of 64 or 68?
2, I think. Yeah,
that's 2.
It. Pitino's
four were won in the field of 4. I think 2 were won in the field of 8, and then 2 were won in the field of 32 or 16, something like that. That may be off on the breakdown, but there are some Mickey Mouse titles. Let's just call it what it is. So the idea that you're like, whoa, we're the best team that's ever done it. We have more wins than UConn. We have more titles. It's like, slow down, Sparky. I've seen all 6 of these championships because I've been alive during them. Unless you're like 86, I don't think you have seen many titles in Kentucky. And likely they were ones that you were like, oh, college basketball, cool. There's like 4 games. Cool. Like, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't mean the same. Like, you can't sit there and tell me that a title like Florida's title last year means like double the amount of the titles that Kentucky has in the 40s and 50s. It's stupid. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
To count those still. Like, it's like modern era titles matter more. That's all. So sorry, exactly. Kentucky fans. You're not going to be a fan of the Big East Energy Network. I can tell you that.
Well, it's like the NFL. It's like, the NFL. Like, if I'm an Eagles fan. If we counted our championships from 47, 48, and 60, I think that obviously we're not counting them as much as the Super Bowls. So,
Jay, I thought we were going to be buddies, but you had to bring up that you're an Eagles fan. That's okay. Do you know that my wife is a Cowboys fan, and the one thing that we agree on is that we hate the Eagles?
Well, that's interesting. That's unfortunate. We can agree on the fact that we hate the Washington team now. So there you go.
Yeah, no, it's 1,000%. I'll say last thing before we jump. When my daughter was born, we got her a spit brag that said, "Oh, I just threw up. I thought I saw an Eagles fan." So I'm sorry. Sorry to. It's actually really funny. It's actually really funny. It's white and green with Eagles colors, so it's actually kind of cute. There you go.
All
right, Jay.
I'll take it.
I think we're going to have many more of these battles as UConn St. John's comes to fruition down in the coming season. But dude, really great to have you. I loved our conversation today. And yeah, this has been another episode of Big East Energy Weekly on the Big East Energy Network. We'll see you guys next time.